Welcome, everybody. Just let whoever wants to join as we go here. Let YouTube kind of update itself, do all of that. This is gonna be a this is not the New Year's stream. That'll be about half an hour after I end this one. This is just a self-contained bookend to the anniversary series, because I started the channel with Factorio. My very first, like, when I sat down to record for the first time to try the YouTube thing was in Factorio. The very first series that I started posting. And I'm sick. I've been devastatingly sick for the last 2.5 days. So if I cough or, in some way, shape, or form, I apologize ahead of time. It's the crud. It's the winter crud. I caught it like last Tuesday, and took a while to manifest. But yeah, Sunday I got blasted with it. But anyway, this world I didn't stream any part of this world. I didn't record any part of it. I didn't stream any part of it. This was just me honing everything that I knew about how Factorio works and where efficiencies can be had, and what causes lag and what doesn't. And this is just a culmination of all of that to try to get as high of a research number that I can while maintaining the 60 FPS UPS number, as you can see on the top of the screen, right? So right now we're sitting at 138 million science per minute. But that's only because the research we're doing is a 120-second cycle. Okay? If we swapped it to a 60-second cycle, it would double that value, right? As you can see, there's a bar on that graph that's 276 million. And this base can handle that. This base can handle that level of science. Obviously it's modded. There is no way. I'm going to flat out say it. There is no way to hit these numbers in the vanilla game. Flat out, it's not possible. Because of just the scale that you would have to hit to even come close. I've seen some people's 1 million science per minute bases, and they are nigh unplayable. So this is modded in ways that try to streamline and optimize for that goal. Yes, I could have just created a lab that had infinite, like, I could have cheated in that way. But what I did is I used the game mechanics, and I used a lot of existing mods, and I tweaked them, and I updated them, and I put out my own custom versions. And all of the mods that I'm using in this world These are all available on the Factorio mod hub, right? These are all there. But there's a dance with this particular set. There's a dance that's happening with all of these different mods, all sort of combining together to bring the ability for everything to go off without a hitch, right? I am able to process an extreme amount of science packs. So I just want to break down some of the big ones. As you can see, the quality level on my science packs is divine. So I have a mod. I took somebody's mythic quality mod and I customized it with another quality on top of that called divine. And the divine quality is a phenomenal multiplier on the science itself, right? It's way down the chain. To get to divine, it takes a bit, but the divine quality is probably one of the biggest stepping stones, because each science pack in the divine quality is 26 science, right? So it's 26. So you can see how fast these are getting chewed through, right? And I'll switch that in a second. So you can see how fast these are getting chewed through. Now, each one of these is 26 science packs. Because one of the things we've discovered with Factorio over the years, because I have done countless episodes and we've done an amazing number of streams with this game, because it is my top favorite game. Like, Factorio is and will always be my favorite game. But we found that the actual processing of science causes more lag than the crafting of said science. Right? So, because it's having to do some weird floating point calculations as it's chewing through the quote-unquote durability of these sciences, and so it's having to do a lot more calculations. So I knew in my building of this mod pack, my number one goal was to do as much science in as few labs as possible. And that's where the divine quality comes in. Because the labs are divine, the modules it has are divine, the science packs are all divine. Everything is divine, right? So I am able to process more science faster, and get to that point. And yes, I could add another 5, 10, 20 quality levels, but that gets a little bit too extreme for even me, right? So I had some artificial limits for myself. One of my limits to myself was limiting the number of beacons to one per building. That's kind of just, I basically did that almost everywhere. Like, I just don't have a lot of beacons. But the beacons I do have, I have a mod in there, configurable beacons, that allow me to have, more than one module in them. So it's like, I don't even use all of these, because this is literally, if you're looking at this is literally the fastest this machine can ever go. There's no way to make this any faster. This is as fast as it goes. The research speed here is tapped out. There's literally no way to get this any faster. So anyway, the divine quality is probably the biggest contributor to the ability to do this. The next mod that that I have customized. So somebody made a mod called Infinite Belt Stacking. Well, the way that they coded that mod, I have customized it so you can see Infinite Belt Stacking FG. So all of my FG monikered, these are all the customized ones. Because what they weren't doing was limiting the number, if a stack inserter grabs a stack, it was actually rendering literally every single one of those. And so what I've done is I've made it so the rendering side is limited in how many you actually can see, but it's still a stack. And so I've got this literally researched where every stack, right, is 20 items. Because that taps out in the vanilla game at 4, where each stack is 4. And so I've got it researched and tuned. This whole base is tuned around all of these to 20 items. So you can see a straight piece of belt has 8 stacks. And so you can see the 160. And it only drops a little bit. You can see the number dropping there a little bit because other inserters are pulling off those stacks. So this allows me to move more things with fewer belts, because that's the second point of UPS and FPS lag. Is when you have a crazy number of belts moving items, especially if the belt is not compressed. A fully compressed belt in Factorio is more efficient than a belt with gaps. So a belt like this is more efficient than a belt like this. So you want to minimize your belts like this and maximize your belts like this. So that was design number 2, is you need to move enough stuff to be able to compress the belts and minimize the number of belts. I only have 1 belt of every science pack going into this system, right? The belts come in here and just go around and come around here, and then they just weave around and go around and around and around and around and around, and boom. So 1 belt is feeding this entire system. The only exception is ag science. And ag science is a pain in the ass, and we'll get to that in a second. But this is 1 belt feeds the whole system. And when I switch over the research to the faster one, you'll see a marked difference in how fast these belts move. So this is tuned right now. The way that this base runs, if I switch it to the faster research, the actual 60-second one, that's always my standard like litmus test, is the 60-second research, because science per minute, I want the science to be per minute. I don't know why they made this 2 minutes, because it's like it's not science per minute at that point. It's hard to even gauge that. But anyway, so the divine quality and the belt stacking are two mods that, combine, do a pretty good job. Now, when it comes to grinding out the actual science, as you can see, each of my science grinders is relatively small, right? This is not a big design. So there's a few things going on here, and this is where most people would throw their hands up and be like, "Oh, you're cheating, blah blah blah, whatever. This is not real." Oh, we just had some biter eggs launch. Yeah. Nice. My biter egg launcher system is... We must have had a Prometheum ship. Yep. So this is my Prometheum. This is my... This is my Prometheum ship that I started the game with. Believe it or not, with all the productivity and stuff I have, I get a lot of science from one launch of eggs. Like a lot. So this is already done crafting. We've consumed all the eggs. And now we're just grinding. Because every step of this has productivity. So we'll get to that. So my crafters for science, there's another mod on here that also enables the ability for this level of production, or this level of science, and that's the recycling mod, right? Reverse factory, I should say. Reverse factory. So the settings I've used for reverse factory is quality is allowed, productivity is not, but it returns 100% of what goes in. And you can set, 100%. The reason I did 100%, the main reason I did it is there are wildly different recipes for different science packs, right? And the way that the percentages work are not very predictable. Because if you're looking at, say, purple science, which uses an unholy amount of rail, well, that in a let's say you're at 50% or even 25%. Well, you're going to get so much effing rail out of this and so little of everything else, right? It's one furnace and one module. And it's like the RNG gods could come down on you and just be like, here's 6,000 rail and 2 productivity modules. So I'm like, I don't want to mess with that. So my return, right, is 100%. But I don't allow productivity in that, but it allows these builds to be very tight. It allows these builds, and I've gone through many iterations of these, and these are still not ideal. Like, there are, even today, plenty of ways that I've looked at this and went, there are ways that I could tweak this. But yeah, so these normal ones are pretty tight and compact. There are exceptions. Ag science on Gleba is an exception. It's a nightmare. It is truly a nightmare. But the recycling mod, and I've gone through so many different iterations of these builds, and I've figured out little tweaks, little inefficiencies. And one of the mods that I added late in the process, was this one, Dequalitier. So what is this? What this does is it's basically a chest, and then you can have the quality of the chest. And so what it does is it says, hey, I am an uncommon chest. If you put a rare item in this chest, it will knock it down to uncommon. If you put a legendary thing, it will knock it down to uncommon. If you put a common thing in there, it won't do a damn thing to it. It doesn't up the quality, it downgrades the quality only. And so what this thing does is allows me to streamline and basically know exactly what quality is going into the system. at any given step, right? And so that's one of those, like, a lot of these don't include these chests in the design because, again, I added that mod much later in my working in this world. So, but this allows me to say, hey, yeah, there's a quality module in here, and I only ever want uncommon out of here. That's it. I don't want rare. I don't want to split rare off. I don't want to deal with any of that shit, right? I don't want to nitpick with the one legendary that comes through, right, at the nth, 1 out of 10,000 science packs that are legendary. I don't care. I'm going to get 10,000 legendary sciences out over here. I don't care about the one that's in here. So downgrade it and send it in to the grinder. Like, I just churn it through, and the productivity alone will just make up for any of that. So there's another mod that I added and then customized. So I have my own version of it, and it is called Productivity Research for Everyone. And what that does is it takes any craft that, let's say, gears or plates, whatever, any recipe that allows productivity, any recipe that doesn't already have a research to bump up productivity, right? Because there are some in the base game, like the steel and plastic, that allow you to bump up productivity. So if it allows productivity and it doesn't already have a research, add a research for productivity. And what I did is I took it and I massively customized it to allow a different, like, it looks at basically like the complexity of the research. Because it looks at, like, okay, what research unlocks this item that has productivity, right? I don't know what a good example is, but a research that unlocks. So the research, let's say, is red and green and blue. Well, that's 3 science packs. So what I do in the mod is I look at what unlocks it and how many science packs it took. And it's just a really simple calculation. I don't have a lot of access or a lot of knowledge of the API. So I wanted to do something that worked. So based off of how many science packs a research needs is what tier, right? What tier it is. And based on that tier, it adds science packs to the research for the productivity. And then I make an exception for any craft that has the word science in it, because literally every science pack has the word science in it, right? Science pack. So the science packs all get maximum amount of, they get every science pack to research. That way you're in the early game and you can't just research, because normally this would just be like red, and it would be like you'd be able to research 20 levels of this without any problem, and now you're getting 300% on your red science. It's ridiculous. So I delayed all of that to Prometheum, so that way you can't get it until you basically finish the game. But yeah, you can see everything has all the symbol here is everything has a productivity. It's just any research or any item that, or any recipe, I should say, that has productivity, you can research productivity. And that's just because I super nerfed productivity modules. Like, I nerfed the hell out of them. I didn't want to rely on productivity modules in the early game. So productivity modules are only really useful on level 3, like Divine, right? So Divine level 3 have 75% productivity. Because, yeah, you can see productivity 3%, 4%, 6%, like 10%. That's a paltry productivity. So it's like I wanted to focus less on productivity modules and more on research, because this was a research-centered thing. Like, I wanted to do research, and so I wanted more things to research. So yeah, the reverse factory with the quality downgraders really helped get things up and running. If we head to Gleba, here's my science. I'll get to this in a second. Here's the ag science grinder. This thing is a beast. So all of these setups, I had a server running. I was using a nominate server as I was building this. I would set everything up, let it run, go to bed, come back, and see what broke. And I did this for days. I would come in, see what broke, tweak the design. I have literally redesigned this many times. Like, more times than I care to admit. Ag science is a royal pain in the ass. But this system is freaking unbelievable. This thing can produce so much ag science. Every time the ship comes to grab more, like every time it comes to grab, it grabs like 600,000 science. So it's like, it's not a small amount of science. And this thing can process and push that out in no time flat. I am using this freezing cold chain logistics mod, but I don't have many of these. I found that the more of these you have, these freezers or refrigerators to a certain extent, the more lag you have. So if you're using this cold chain logistics in your game, and let's say you're like just cruising around, and I'm just gonna go to the right. So if you're running, let's say you're running to the right, and if you're doing this and you're hitching every like 2 seconds, if your character is hitching, even in a single player game, if your character is hitching, it's this mod, right? This mod, and my number one request to the Factorio devs is allow a container to control the spoilage rate of what's inside of it, right? Because the spoilage rate is determined by the object, not the container. So the container really doesn't have any bearing on the spoilage rate. So what the author of this mod had to do is they had to run a script. And so they run a script like every 2 seconds, which literally iterates over this entire inventory. Every stack. Oh, we're getting another delivery. Excellent. Glorious. So this thing iterates over every stack and resets the spoilage timer, right? Every 2 seconds. So, like, this one is a mythic. This one is a normal. In my humble opinion, they should have a smaller one of these, because the mod has refrigerators, right? So here's a refrigerator right here. But these are not perfectly stable, right? They're refrigerators, not freezers. Freezer stops spoilage. Refrigerator slows it. I would want one of these, or at best case, sort of a storehouse, like a smaller version. But in the end, you don't want many of these. So you want to minimize how many of these you have. So here we have the grinder at work. And this is going to produce a truly spectacular amount of science. And this system here, was Oz had helped come up with, he came up with this design. Now normally it would have four containers, but I ran into the lag. I ran into the lag glitch where I was hitching constantly. So I sort of kit bashed it and I just turned it into one. Like, so everything comes in here and I try to limit so that's all wired in. There's so much circuit network shit in this world. Like, the fact that it's still running at 60 FPS is pretty substantial. It goes to the credit of the developers. But as you can see, like, this is a lot of science, but we're not actually making any more. This is just now filtering through all the science that we have, right? And so now it's going to peter out and it's going to trickle down and it's going to basically get close to filling this up, and it'll eventually stop. It'll fall to a trickle and then it'll stop. And I just have everything wired because everything's wired because the way the loaders work, they'll output stacks, but if it's, if there's 2 extra, it'll output 2. So I try to gate it so it outputs full, like the full Monty. But yeah, that was 1.3 million science just in a matter of a few seconds. And by the way, again, these are worth 26 science. So this is actually, 20, probably 30 million science right here. Here's a Quillo. Again, we have a pretty simple system here. This is just backstuffed. I get a lot of when I come with the ship. This is why this is so huge. When I come with the ship to fill a Quillo, I get a lot of science. It's a longer trip, right? It takes longer round trip, so I get a lot more. So this whole system is just backstuffed constantly. So there's another tweak that I did. So the Mythic, my version of the Mythic quality mod. If you notice, if we look at these cargo bays, you can see Mythic quality FG edition. I tracked down and was able to add more hatches per bay because I was running into a limit with my shuttles. So if we go to like Gleba Science, you can see these here. These are all actually refrigerated, which is kind of funny. Let's see. Let's do a Quillo. So this kind of ship is this is like my freighter, right? This is my space freighter. Just a unholy amount, because when you're launching rockets from the surface, I'm launching 100 at a time. And in the base game, these only allow one cargo to land at once, right? And so I'm able to launch rockets faster than the ships were able to take them in. So the bottleneck was actually the ship in orbit waiting to bring the stuff in, because all of the rockets would launch, and then the ship would just slowly it would just like wave after wave of stuff would land, because there's a hard-coded delay in how fast stuff comes into the ship. And so the solution was you just have an unholy amount of cargo bays. Well, this provides its own personal hell versus, like, you don't need 6 bazillion cargo bays. You shouldn't need this. Like, this thing has a crazy amount of storage. Yeah, 36,000 storage slots. And I'm pretty sure that's close to the max, because 37 or something like that. Sounds like it would be maxed, but so I was like, I need this design. I hated everything about it. So what I did was I found the spot that you can set the cargo hatches, right? So I think I did that in the mythic quality. That's why this is marked as being touched by the mythic quality. I think that's the mob that does that. But I set that cargo hatch to 10. Now there is a graphical bug that happens because the door, believe it or not, the door that opens is part of the shuttle that comes in. So a shuttle will come in, a cargo thing will come in, the door will open, but there's a door underneath it. So but you can run a lot, right? This can pull in a lot of material. So you can see this. There's a door behind a door here. I've been waiting for. There we go. Now Gleba Science is on the way. So you can see, like, we have 100 silos on Gleba to launch science, and there's not that many cargo bays. 59, no, plus 23,000. I don't know. Okay, input hatches, yeah. So if we look at Gleba, you can see all the ship, or all the things are launching. And these are my nuclear bots, by the way, because of course. And if we go watch, even though we have a pretty finite number of cargo bays, all of those shuttles are going to be able to land as fast as possible. And it'll just absorb. I mean, that was 100,000 science right there. So it's like, and I think this thing is requesting, 600,000. So 6 launches, and the wait time, like, I would just have to add more silos at this point to launch more faster, right? That's or try to mod the shuttles themselves and say, hey, let's launch more than whatever 1,000 that you can put up there. Like, how about 2,000 or 3,000? And let's see, Fulgora. So Fulgora, and let me talk about the next mod. The next mod that completely revolutionized my ability to have an Uber production factory. Because as you can see, I thought the problem was the pipes. So this is kind of showing an attempt of a solution to the problem, but not actually having it solved. What is that? That's a weird graphical. What is that all about? That's got to be a bug with the... Is that with this? It is. Huh. I guess I didn't notice that. That's got to be new. I don't know when that would have downloaded or broken, but anyway. So the fluid must flow mod. So I was having a huge problem, especially on Fulgora. This is why I'm here. I was having a huge problem with fluids, and Fulgora is particularly sensitive because the majority of these crafts are fluid based. Right? We have 2 fluids that are used to craft the science packs. And fluids don't have quality. So that was a nice thing to not have to worry about. So I ran into a problem with how slow everything was. It was just not fast enough to craft. Like, I was not able to craft the science fast enough to keep up with the maximum level of consumption. It just couldn't. I had more than enough resources. I had more than enough potential, but the crafters themselves were the problem. And so the pipes just couldn't get full. Like nothing seemed to work. So I installed the fluid must flow mod, thinking, oh, it must be a throughput issue, right? The pipes, whatever, are just having problems. But with the changes in the fluid system that they made, pipes have literally near infinite throughput with the new fluid mechanics. So after I installed all of this, it made zero difference. I did all of this work, refactored the whole thing, and it made no difference at all. Like, the pumping speed of all of these, it made no difference. They don't even come close to that pumping. So what the problem actually was each crafter in its inventory, think of the input slots in a crafter, in a machine. The input slots for fluids were limited in size, and they were kind of hard-coded, sort of. So 100, 200, etc. fluid, and that's all you could put in there. But normally, when you have speed modules, especially, a machine will automatically overload item inputs, right? You'll be able to load in hundreds of an object because you've got a bunch of speed modules in, right? It's a bigger buffer. But the same calculation was not being done on the fluid box. And so the problem was a technical limitation. The speed of the machine with modules was not affecting the actual fluid box. There was not a buffer there big enough to maintain the speed of the machine at 100% efficiency. So I have a mod. I found a mod, and it's one of those like brilliant little gems. Like somebody figured that shit out, and they figured out how to make it work, and how to like we get it done. Ooh, I gotta see the. You want to see lightning? Check this out. Oh yeah, that is some lightning, baby. This is a divine lightning collector. Look at this. The radius of this thing is like So it's scooping up all the lightning in this whole area. Anyway, I wanted to show that off. I thought that would make a good meme. So what the mod does is it is called Fluid Box Speed Multiplier. And anybody wanting to do a mega base or a super build, you must have that mod. Because this allows you to create fluid, the fluid box. It's just the way the game defines the inventory slot, right? It's a fluid box. So this is like multiplying the fluid box by that speed, and it's like this is now able to hold enough fluid where the machine is actually able to craft at 100% efficiency, full bore, no, like just full stop, just push as hard as possible. And that is what finally unlocked. Like I was, as you can see, trying fucking everything to try to push more fluid into the system, and nothing was working. And that mod changed everything. The fluid box speed multiplier, and what a difference in how efficient like the factory became. Now there's no bottlenecks other than actual resources, which I'm okay with, because that's why I play the game. You fix the resources, and then you're not limited by your gubbins up here. I was trying a lot of different things to store, and it was pretty crazy. And then to min-max efficiency in here, I've got little outposts of science packs, and the bots can grab these, and these can ship faster. Because for some reason on this planet, so this was just like an attempt to be more efficient. So now the rockets actually launch faster on this planet because of this. They're just closer. And there's a bunch of little quality of life mods that I've got on here too. Like I don't even know how many there are anymore. Like, it's been a while since I've played this. Like, I put this world together like back in August or something like that. I can't even remember. Here's my grinders. But yeah, it's all good. So let's really trigger this thing. Unfortunately, I don't have a research anymore. Railgun damage. I was hoping to find one. Refined flammables. Oh. Stronger explosives. This is one. Okay, so we're gonna queue this. This is 1 billion science. Okay, 1 billion science. I want to do this because it has ag, and I don't want to do this. So we're gonna push this in front. Right? So now, again, not all science packs are being used here, which is unfortunate. But, as you can see, I've got this all gated around a mount on the belt. If it's low, if it's super low, it'll add another lane. And the lane, this is also a min-max thing. the lane that it adds, right? If this one triggers, the lane that it adds is the one that's prioritized first, right? That way you don't have any buildup. But you can see, like, it's going, and they're almost full blast. And hey, Martin and Robert, Happy New Year. So these are almost full blast. Like, they're not quite, but they're almost. And as you can see, we're at 275 million science per minute. So a 1 billion science is going to take us roughly 3 minutes. Like 2.5 minutes. This is why when I go out and get more science, that I'm bringing home like over 600,000 per trip. Just because this thing can chew through. And I can, if I had a bunch of these kind of, if I queued up, this base would go fine. And so the other mod that I've customized, I basically updated it and tweaked it myself. I mean, credit to the original author for making it originally, but the advanced belts. So I have my own. I've uploaded my own version of that mod, which requires the hyper transport belt. Actually requires it to be built on a ship. Right. So I've kind of customized it and updated it for like space exploration or space age. So it's, and the belts themselves, like the top tier belt, 150 items per second. And you can tweak the settings if you want. But there is an upper limit of how fast you want your belts to go. Because of the game's 60 UPS, any higher than about 180, right? Any higher than 180 items per second, and you run the risk of items being voided. Because the game, if the belts are so fast that an object moving, let's just say you have an object coming flying in here. Oh, there's the 1 billion science done. There it is. So if an object is coming in here, well, let's say you have a 220 speed belt. Well, what happens is the item is moving so fast, it'll appear in this belt for a single frame. But it's moving so fast that it would skip this belt and go to this belt in the next frame. But the game doesn't like that. And so it basically, the item just kind of vanishes off in the ether. You know, if a belt is fully compressed like this, that's not, you know, that you won't see that problem because the items are not moving at their max speed. But you can run the risk of items being lost. And you also run the risk of a belt not actually being fully compressed. I've seen it before where super fast belts, the items are not actually compressed like you see here. So 150, and then you make up for that limitation with stacking. So I compensated with speed with stacking it to 20. So now, like, I'm able to move 20 times more on a single belt. So I don't need it to be faster. I really don't. If I needed more throughput, I would just research more stacking. But this was the culmination of 10 years of Factorio and all of my Uber productions and all of my designs and all the multiplayer games we played and all of the circuit lessons that Oz taught me and trying to drill into my fucking brain how circuit networks worked. And it took literally years for it to click in my mind, right? It took so long for me to actually understand how the circuit network works. And there are still parts of it that are like, it's hard for me to think because it's a different way of thinking than what I'm used to in my programming. But once I learned how they work, I was like, oh my God, like this is the most brilliant system I've ever seen in a game. Like, it's so simple on its surface. It is dead simple on its surface. But what you can do with it is near infinite. It's one of those like, oh my God. Yeah, it's like, look at this. You're like, what is this all about? And this is my initial reaction too, is like, what the hell is going on here? But once you actually understand how it works, it's like, holy Moses, like this is a brilliant, absolutely brilliant thing in a factory game. And literally it's one of those like, literally every factory game needs this. Right now. Why does not every factory game needs something like this? And if they don't, they're just in denial. Because it is beautiful, and I use it all over. But yeah, that is my like pentultimate Factorio like Uber production. 276 million science per minute. I'm sure if you wanted to sacrifice some FPS and you could push it even higher, I have no doubt I could get to 500. I could get to 500 million. I would need to add, another ship of each kind for science to go out and fetch. I would need to reconnoiter all of this to have belts coming out for another supply line. It could be done. But 500 million science per minute, that'd be crazy. So it's possible, but you'd be getting 20 FPS. At that point, because you would have to have so many more. You'd have basically double the number of labs, which that's where your biggest lag spikes will come in, is the labs. And I also have it networked here. I have a mod in here that's awesome. Utility combinators. Utility combinators includes a combinator that outputs signals based on the current research. So you can see it outputs a signal for each science pack that's needed. It outputs one for the time, and it outputs one for the number of science packs, right? Number of iterations. And I used this to control ag science. So I didn't want ag science sitting on the belt and rotting, or sitting in the machines and rotting. Because these divine science packs, like, these are worth a lot. So what happens if a research triggers, or if a research finishes, and there's either not one, or the next one doesn't have ag science, the whole system dumps the ag science out. I mean, it dumps it out completely. Back in to the storage, to the freezer here, even emptying as soon as the belts are. Yeah, there you go. So it even empties out, and they're all based on the circuit network. So the whole system drains all of its ag science out. And then the next, the research will go on. So you can see this railgun shooting speed here. 536 billion science. And it's going to take roughly 31 hours. So yeah, I had this running on a server for weeks. Right? Weeks to get this to level 100. Because this level is 99 billion. This one is 536 billion. So the previous one of this was like 256 billion. So it's like crazy. But anyway, this is a good bookend to, the anniversary streams or anniversary of the channel. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to end this stream here. And this will be a self-contained expose of the crazy the crazy Factorio game that I just showed you. And then I'm gonna go grab a bite to eat, and then I'm gonna spin up another stream, which is just gonna be a casual, relaxing, reminiscing about the channel and the last 10 years, and I'll probably have Stardew Valley or something going just for something to distract my hands. I really don't want to do a full screen webcam, like my little camera. Like, you don't want to see that. I'm sick. Like, you don't want to see that. Yeah. Because I didn't want to include the New Year's Eve stream with this Factorio stream. So I'm going to end this here. And I hope to see everybody back here in about a half an hour when I spin up the New Year's Eve, casual, just chillaxing stream. So hope to see everybody back here in about a half an hour.